All right, everybody stand up. And I'm going to do an experiment. So think in your head what is your favorite 80s movie. Do you have the genre down? I'm not going to seed you with anything because my experiment would be poisoned. And then turn to the left and share, and turn to the right and share. Hear who theirs is, and you tell them what yours is. Okay, you guys got it? All right, you can have a seat now. So now you know whether, some of you now know that you're sitting next to an idiot, which is good. If I were sitting next to you, I would be that idiot. So how many of you said or heard my favorite movie from the 80s, which is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? None! Okay. How about Dumb and Dumber? That's my second one. All right. Ferris Bueller? Okay. Good, yeah. So thank you for having me up here. I've helped build and sell 4 companies. One was pretty good outcome for everybody. Like, we slugged it through. We got within 30 days of missing payroll, but we got on the other side of that. We sold that one to Oracle. It was a good outcome. One we sold to Amazon was an okay outcome. One we sold to Merritt's was an okay outcome. One we sold to a company nobody's ever heard of, and nobody made any money, and we just barely escaped with our lives. And that was 4 years of my life I'll never get back. But I've become a student of the game. It's fun. It's interesting to do what we're all doing, trying to build exciting, interesting companies. If there weren't a risk of extinction, it would be hard for me to get out of bed. So I like being where it's hard, and I'm now a student of the game. I try to figure out, like, what are the components of success. I can't just get up and make the donuts. That's I don't know how you're wired, but I'm not really that interested in that. I want to figure out what are the components of success, and how do I design and architect something that's going to be great. So I'm now on the board of Forrester Research. Those are people who do that, like, for a living. I don't think I could do that either. Like, just being an analyst, I don't think I could do all day every day. Like, I want to be on the field, but I also want to study. So if you're wired like me, hopefully you'll go on this journey with me for these 30 minutes on some of the components of what I think create success. I teach one second-year MBA elective class at the BYU's Marriott School of Business, and it's on B2B sales and marketing. And we start with sales because, for whatever reason, MBAs think, like, they don't give sales any credit. They think sales is like a caricature to most MBAs. I was reading in a, not the Marriott School, but another business school course catalog, and they had a big, robust paragraph on marketing, and one on operations, and one on supply chain, and one on finance. The sales was one sentence. It said, sales is the function of the business that brings in revenue. Oh, that's it? That's all. That sales is the function of the business that brings in revenue. So that's what pays our paychecks. That's what funds our business. That's what funds our growth. I don't know what it is about MBAs, but MBAs think sales is like this. We haven't sold a single unit of our new wireless HASIC product. Our plan is to make the salespeople work in teams and take turns wearing electroshock pants. Now close the deal, Cliffy, or it's payback time. Or we think like this. We can't compete on price, and we also can't compete on quality, features, or service. That leaves fraud, which I would like you to call marketing. The truth is, in today's world, nothing that sales or marketing says matters. The value of what we offer today is determined by the customer. not by us. So we're going to talk a little bit today about that. Anybody know what that is, by any chance? That is JCPenney headquarters in Plano, Texas. In 2001, as a newly minted MBA myself, I spent a lot of time, I was 32 years old, and spent a lot of time at this place trying to sell a software solution to their heads of merchandising. The category that we were selling didn't really exist, which meant that we had no competitors, which meant that there was really kind of no established price for what we were trying to sell them. And there also wasn't a demo because we didn't have any screens. We had a pretty powerful backend, like optimization, like a machine learning backend that could take terabytes of data and optimize the decisions they were making about buying assortments of merchandise. But it was more of a concept than a real software solution. So how did we sell them? Like, how would you go about selling something like that? Well, what we did is we listened. We asked them questions. We learned about their process. We learned how they operated, how they made these bets. We documented everything that we heard. We played it back to them to make sure we understood. We wrote on the whiteboard. As soon as we got to a point where we felt like, we were saying back to them what we thought we heard, and they were saying, yeah, and also this, we had some mutual understanding. Then we started brainstorming or proposing what from our solution might be able to help their process. And then we documented how much risk they were taking in dollars and cents when they would commit to a season worth of merchandise. It's a lot, right? It's a big operation. And then we documented how much risk we could take out of that equation by applying optimization to it. And we got to a value proposition. So JCPenney, at the time, they were kind of flying high then. They're not flying so high right now, but at the time, they stood on ceremony. So if you wanted to go talk to the executives, it was the very top floor of that rotunda, and you had to get through 2 layers of executive assistants to get to an executive's office. If you wanted to go to the executive room, that was separate from the cafeteria. And I had been there, but they invited us to the executive dining room when we wanted to make our proposal. I think it was to intimidate us. And so I was trying not to, as a 31-year-old or 32-year-old, I was trying not to be distracted by the white linen tablecloths and the over-attendant servers and the fancy lunch, because I had to ask for the business, and I was going to put a big number in front of them. So the time came to ask, and I pulled out my laptop like a good software nerd, and I reminded them that the amount of value that we had targeted coming out of this was $100 million of incremental gross margin. And then I said, what that will cost is $1.5 million per month plus $2 million to set it up. That's $20 million. And they stood up to walk out of the room. And they said, do you even know how software is sold? And I didn't want to say no, even though that was the right answer. So I said, well, I know how much it's worth to you. And then it was a stare down. I met their stare. I met their silence. They eventually sat back down. We talked it through. We did not close a deal for $20 million. We closed for $6.5 million, which at the time was the biggest deal our company had ever sold. But for the $6.5 million, they did not buy, they didn't pay $6.5 million for software. They paid $6.5 million for access to the $100 million that we had reached a mutual agreement was, what our objective was. So for me, that is an example of value-based selling, value selling. And we're going to talk about value selling today. Found on the web. The process of understanding. I'm just going to try to speak loud during those breaks. Reinforcing the reasons why you're why your offer is valuable to the customer. You know what's interesting though, in our economy, the economy gets as for modular and more service-based, customers rebuy essentially every month, and we have to resell essentially every month. I mean, our customers are not locked in; they're tenants at will. They can go at any time. So you could actually swap selling out for customer success, which is the process of understanding and reinforcing the reasons why your offer is valuable to the customer. So I think that is what we're doing. Greg Dane's is nodding. Friend of mine, he says customer success is the new sales. I agree with you. We are on the front lines, understanding and reinforcing the value that our offer, the reasons why our offer is valuable to the customer. Does that look familiar to anybody? So we talk about value selling. We put it in the hands of a salesperson. They work their way up to find a business sponsor. The business sponsor becomes convinced of the value that the solution is going to provide to him or her. Then they go get approval from an executive sponsor, and we get the PO, and we get the order, we get the signature. Then it gets handed off to implementation, which bounces around, has some ups and downs, and it's run not by the business sponsor, not by the executive, but by an admin or a project manager. And then when it comes out of implementation, kind of the dust off and like shaking it off because it's generally not super easy, then the CSM gets a handoff, and then a year later we're responsible for the renewal, which is a big question mark because we haven't talked to the executive sponsor or the business sponsor in months. Because when we got it handed off, the relationship belonged somewhere down in the organization. Does that look familiar to anybody? Yes? It stinks, right? It's horrible. Like, at some point, somebody signed up and put their career on the line to buy this thing, and that's actually probably the person who's going to sign the renewal, but I haven't been interacting with that person for a long time. It's a problem. What we really want to do is, hang on. What we really want to do is this. We do want to sell value. So we want them to believe in that $100 million value proposition or whatever it is that they care about. We want them to actually believe in that. Like the best sales cycle actually gets to a point where the person is buying, we're not pushing and selling. We're not using the electroshock pants. We're not using fraud. We're actually having a conversation with them, discovering what's valuable to them and getting them to a point where they believe and they purchase for a reason. Then we want the delivery to happen of that value that the executive sponsor purchased. And once that value is delivered, we want to turn that sponsor into a reference, meaning either internally they're going to reference to their peers so that we can expand the solution, or externally they're going to reference to other customers, their peers in the industry, so we can sell to the next customers. That's a self-reinforcing cycle. I bought value, I got value, let me tell you about that so you can buy value and you can get value and you can tell someone else about that. That's a self-reinforcing cycle. That's what we would want. Of course it's what we would want. And when it works, you get something like this. So Katie Azuma is Global VP of Business Development for Infor, which is the largest privately held software company in the world. And she gets paid and promoted based on adding to her pipeline. She has teams on 4 continents, and their job, their SDR teams, she calls them BDRs, their SDR teams, they call through leads and they qualify leads and they get leads into the pipeline, and the more qualified opportunities she gets, the better her team gets paid, she gets paid, and she gets promoted. That's what she bought. She did not implement the system. She did not QA the system. She did not do all the iteration on kind of training on the system. And she actually cared whether those things happened, but she didn't have a lot of patience for conversations about that because what she really wanted was to get to this. And once she got to this, what do you think, which slide of all of the implementation updates do you think she presents to her boss? It's not on time. It's not on budget. That's not the slide she presents. It's not that I have good adoption. It's not that I have, that I paid less. It's this slide right here. In fact, she called me and said, hey, remember that slide that we went over? Can you send that to me? Because I have a QBR I need to present to my boss. Of course. Here it is. That's your success. And sometimes, not sometimes. We have to remember what the success stands for when we say customer success or client success. It's her success. It's not our success. It's her success. When she succeeds, she'll expand. When she succeeds, she'll renew. And whatever she cares about is what we care about. So that all sounds lovely, Dave. That's amazing. Wow, something up and to the right. Beautiful. But what would distract us from that? Why does that sound different than our day-to-day lives? It's different than sort of that thing. So where's the disconnect? Well, there's a lot of stuff that can distract us from that. A lot. There's a lot of stuff that can keep us busy. There's a lot of stuff that we can sort of, we can go home tired at the end of the day, not having gotten to the end of our to-do list, and yet we still haven't done any of that. And I like to talk about the 10th floor versus the 3rd floor. So Katie is on the metaphorical 10th floor. That's where the executives live. Or at JCPenney, it was on that top floor of that rotunda behind all the EAs. And the people on the 10th floor care about value. The people on the 3rd floor, and I'm talking about IT, operations, project managers, do not care about value. That is not how they're incented. They're extraordinarily good at their job, and their job is not to go get value. Their job is to reduce risk. That's how they get paid. Take risk out. Take cost out. Take complexity out. That's how they get paid. So often when I'll have a conversation with someone on the 10th floor about something that's happening on the 3rd floor, that 10th floor person will say, you know what, that's not their job. I get it. I know they're trying to push for blah, blah, blah thing that's going to make it easier. It's my job to take risk and go get value. So I need you to talk to me about that stuff. So why aren't we on the 10th floor more? There's a million reasons we're not on the 10th floor. And often it's because we've got nothing to say on the 10th floor. Like if you had 5 minutes with the CEO, would you have anything to say? Or the head of sales, or the head of operations, or the head of merchandising. If you had 5 minutes with that person, would you have anything to say? I guarantee if you lead by saying, hey, we got the software implemented on time, your 5 minutes would be cut short. They'd be, oh, that's great, fantastic. We got people on the 3rd floor that deal with that. So part of it is we got to have something to say on the 10th floor. The other is when the 10th floor has let vendors in the past, it has created problems. Like everybody's got PTSD from letting people like us onto the 10th floor. They've been oversold, they've been overpromised, they've been underdelivered. So we got a lot of headwinds from getting to the 10th floor, and yet only the 10th floor matters. So it's tough. We're in a tough spot. And compound that with I got the handoff from the 3rd floor, and then I'm in a really tough spot if I have to fight my way back up to that executive sponsor. It's often said that a sales cycle, I don't know if it's often said, I say this. I often say that a sales cycle is only good as the political power of your executive sponsor. So what does that mean? When we're trying to sell a deal, we're looking for we're looking for a purple unicorn, someone who has 3 things all in the same person. One is pain, and that means they actually own a number. Like they are a leading actor, not a supporting actor. They get promoted or fired based on delivering business results. That's the person who has the pain. There's lots of supporting actors who don't want that much pressure, who support that person, but there's somebody who owns a business result. That person has the pain. Also power. Power means I can get something done. There's lots of people with titles who don't have power, and you can figure that out just the same way you used to figure out who are the cool kids in high school. You can just tell from body language how people treat them in meetings, whether or not they get interrupted, whether or not they say much in meetings. By the way, person who says the least in a meeting has the most power, usually, unless they're the note taker. Person grandstanding doesn't have as much power as they think they do. So I need pain and I need power, meaning I can get something done, and I need vision. A lot of people have power, but they don't use it for good. They use it to protect the status quo. And that person actually is going to be tough, right? Because what you want is someone who will use their power to lead the organization into the future. I can see the future, I have vision, and I am not afraid to lead my organization into the future. That's someone we can work with. Pain, power, and vision. I would say that when it comes to customer success, our ability to maintain a 10th floor relevance is only as good as our relationship with an true executive sponsor and the political power of that sponsor in their organization. So back to this. Nowhere on that picture does it make me confident that I'm going to be able to have a 10th floor relationship. And what we really want is that. In fact, if we could have our druthers, we would move the CSM relationship all the way up into the sales cycle. I would like the CSM to be able to start getting involved and becoming a presence with the executive sponsor and the business sponsor, at least as the deal is signed, or maybe even before the deal is signed. Otherwise, Katie doesn't care. She cared during the sales cycle. She sort of wants some updates during the implementation. But if I never connected to the reason she actually bought, which wasn't for software, and it wasn't on price, and it wasn't on sort of happier, shinier people or prettier screens, it wasn't any of that stuff. She bought more leads or more qualified opportunities. Or in the case of JCPenney, they bought more gross margin dollars. Or in the case of your customers, they're buying whatever they get promoted for. That's what they're buying. We want to be connected all the way up there so that there's no such thing as a CSM handoff. Katie, just to follow this example through, has been promoted. And her success is our success. So if you can show a chart like that in your QBR, you get noticed. She now took on an additional 2 teams, and because of the success she had in her initial, 4-continental team, she's now rolling our solution out to those 2 new teams. Yeah, because she succeeded, right? And it's about her success. What we really want to do is this: sell to value, deliver to value, and reference to value. And the custodians of that, whether your handoff is good or not, whether there was ever an executive sponsor involved in the deal or not, whether you had a good implementation or not, the custodians of that are us. And when we can do this, we will build phenomenal companies. Thank you.